What's up, everyone? We've got another awesome episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show, and today, look, the guest we have, the new Nationals champion with the best deck. Introduce yourself, please, bro.
How's it going? First of all, thank you guys for having me. I'm sure it's gonna be a real pleasure just talking to you guys for like a few minutes. My name is Galzo. I'm a YouTuber, content creator, branded player. I do a lot of branded and not branded content over on YouTube. And also won the national championship this year in Israel. So I'm really happy about that with the best deck. And yeah, it's gonna be. It has been an exciting year, and it's gonna be an exciting year from now on as well.
100%, bro. 100%. Yeah.
Love it.
And I think one of the awesome things as well, I even remember, like, but running up until the Nationals, I'm going to go straight into Nats talk because I feel like it's a really interesting thing to talk about. Up until Nationals, like, you were putting in work with, like, builds and testing, like, you were really, really going in. And I remember when the news dropped that you hit that Nationals top. And with Branded as well, I was saying to all my mates, because all my mates weren't believers, I was like, look, I think Branded has like a spot here. Like, it could easily just snag a Nationals moment. It's like, nah, this deck, that deck's best deck. And then when I heard Galzo was taking it with Branded, I was like, nah, this is the legend. He's done it for us. He's finally proved. Yeah, man. So yeah, very, very, very solid, man. Very good win. But
Thank you.
If you don't mind, do you mind giving us a bit of an intro into your YouTube channel, into yourself, kind of how you got started with Yu-Gi-Oh! And YouTube and such?
Yeah, for sure. I've been playing. I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh back in the olden days when I was like, in the playground. I'm a little bit older than most people. I'm 32 in terms of like in the community. So I've been playing basically since I was a kid. Around probably I want to say like Dark Crisis, Magician's Force days, something like that. Started playing in the playground, collecting. Also went to tournaments. We had some sort of a scene here, even though we're like a pretty small country. We do have a European championship out of Israel. Idol Marcus, shout out to him. He won in Dublin. I don't remember when. I think Shadol's or something. And we did have some sort of a community. So I played then sort of like quit after a few years, stopped playing the game. We have army duty and stuff like that. Like things get in the way. Went to school, moved out of the house, blah, blah, blah. Sort of like a lot of people, COVID hit. And then I was kind of like, on YouTube a lot, like kind of like in my hobbies. And I remember picking up Link Evolution for the Switch, which was one of the most modern Yu-Gi-Oh games at that time. I just picked up the Switch. It was new. I got the game, and it was like super nostalgic. I go into the game, like, damn, I played this before. And I remember going on YouTube to start like, understanding the game a little bit better. Shout out to Doug Zeef, because it's probably his channel that got me into like understanding how to play the game. I started playing Altergeist, and I spent like probably 6 months on DB before I picked up any physical cards, because I was like, there's no locals anyway right now, so might as well just like practice, so I'm ready for when I can actually play in locals with like physical cards. And it was kind of like slow from there. I was actually my YouTube channel originally, I created it to do like Call of Duty content.
Oh wow.
It wasn't even meant to be a Yu-Gi-Oh channel at all. My girlfriend, she does her own like gaming stuff over on YouTube, so she kind of inspired me to just like try. And I did start it as a Call of Duty channel, but then along the way, I just I started integrating Yu-Gi-Oh content in it, and it was kind of weird, like the mix between the two. And I found a lot of friends here in the community and around the world, and a lot of people who supported me back then. And I was like, yeah, let's do it Yu-Gi-Oh full time. And I started doing that, and I don't remember exactly like how it hit me that it should be branded, but I remember like it was I played nationals last year with branded and got top 16 back when it was like Despia Sword Soul format in the nationals. And so I loved that deck, but I kind of played it, stopped playing it. It wasn't like part of my identity or anything like that. And then I remember doing like one branded video that did really, really well. And I was like, maybe that's what I should focus on. Like maybe I should be like the the emissary of Branded on YouTube, because people want a niche, because it's much harder to make it. I mean, it's probably like if your content is good, you're gonna make it either way. But like, I chose to go in that route, and now I'm trying to kind of like not break off from that, but like expand from that, because now I have like some sort of audience. And yeah, I started doing like branded focused content, and I saw that like every time I would do like pack openings and stuff like that, those would do not so well. And then like every once in a while I would do a Despia deck profile or something like that, and that would do super well. So I'm like, I mean, I enjoy doing that. And then it kind of became like part of my identity. Konami probably saw that and released like 10 Starlights, so I can pimp out my deck and show the fans. And yeah, the rest is history. Like Nationals was like the final nail in the coffin, or like the final push, like, getting me over that hill. I'm really grateful for that. Like, people have been super supportive, and it's just amazing. Like, I'm really, really enjoying it.
Wow, awesome. Yeah. And so I'd say, just so obviously Branded is kind of like the mainstay of your channel, and it's like, yeah, where a lot of your content is. But just wondering, are there any other decks in particular that you look at that's like, yeah, this one could be the other Branded, so to speak, if it needed to be?
Well, in terms of like decks that I usually try, like the last time I tried playing a deck I don't really enjoy playing, it didn't go so well. I think in terms of it was tier sprite format when Power of the Elements came out. We kind of had to make, I'm not necessarily like a pro player who will pick up like, Joshua Schmidt, he says every time there's like a deck, I pick up the whole deck, every deck, just in case they're good. So I have them for a tournament.
Yeah.
I personally don't do that. And even in times where I picked up more cards, now I buy less cards, just because I'm focused on Branded. But back when I used to, we had to like sort of gamble on what's going to be like solid, especially with Tier Sprite, which was like 2 very good decks with expensive cores, that we kind of like, I have my own Discord group of friends, and we were like labbing, and I think a lot of people were thinking the same thing, like, what does Tier even do? It doesn't seem that good. Before people showed up with Danger Tier, which was absolute insanity and curious and stuff, we didn't really understand what Tier is going to do. So I picked up Sprite, and I just hated, I don't know, I didn't really enjoy the way it played, even though it's a really fun deck. So it didn't feel like it's for me, because I've played other decks since which felt more my style. Even Tier Ishizu was something I enjoyed more than Sprite at that time. That time Sprite was like, Toad Pass, stuff like that. It wasn't like super exciting. And so I was like, in the past I played Altergeist for a big portion of time, and then Sky Striker was the deck I played before Branded. And even after Branded a little bit, like Sky Striker was the deck that again, shout out to GGYGO. His channel definitely got me into. Also another example of somebody who started in a very specific niche of like a deck, and now he's like, expanding outside of that. So now I'm building Striker again, because engaged in multi-role. Got a little bit more gas, so I think it's just gonna be fun. And currently Branded is still super competitive, and it's probably gonna be like that for a little while. So I'm not really building any other deck. One deck I would really like to build is Vanquish Soul, but I mean, I'm not gonna pick up 8 ultras. I mean, it's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, that deck is a little bit hard on everyone's wallet.
Yeah, it came second at one of the nationals, right?
Yeah, it did.
It came second in Italy.
Yeah,
that was it. Italy. Yeah. I remember because I think a few people. Yeah, of course, yeah. I remember a few people were talking about Vanquish Souls as like a potential fun deck, and then they revealed that it was 7 ultra rares out of a side set, and it was like, probably not going to pick this up anymore. Like,
I don't understand. Like, I don't understand their thinking process on this.
No,
the set is weird overall, but
I think I understand that. I think Konami were like, oh, money. That's what Konami was like. So I see that's the thinking process behind it. But
Yeah.
the unfortunate thing, actually, me and my mates were talking about yesterday, is that unfortunately I do think Vanquish Control is probably a really good pickup even at its cost right now, just because it's already okay, and then we know for a fact it's probably going to get like 2 more waves of support.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
If it does, they'll be insane. Like
Yeah.
that's probably true. It's probably gonna get support.
Yeah, that's it. It's like we know it's going to get support. It's already pretty good. It's got a Link 1.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna go down in
Yeah,
price.
it's not gonna. They're not gonna reprint that. So
Not for a while.
Not for
anyway.
a while. So unfortunately,
That's a good point.
yeah. I mean,
That's a very good point.
yeah. So it's gonna be interesting to see if Vanquish Control does become like the best deck after its next few waves of support. Because I think right now it's good. I think the main problem right now is it just doesn't really have a win condition. Like they just summon a bunch of stuff. Most of the time when I lose to Vanquish Control right now, it's because like they just have the right hand traps and stuff, and they just accelerate an advantage, but they don't really do anything. And so, like,
they just have a lot of cards in hand, and they play on card advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
Because eventually they need a really stacked hand, and they also like Ash is fire attribute, so
Exactly.
it's a bit harder for Branded specifically. But also they play like Kurikara and stuff like that. I just really liked the play style, because right now every deck, I'm sorry, I mean it's probably gonna annoy some people, but most decks are just like garbage gameplay, not fun to pilot at all. If you're talking about Kashira, if you're talking about Labyrinth, maybe you could get creative with like furniture stuff, but again, it's just like a deck. The win condition is like Eradicator your opponent. Who cares about that? Branded, we had our mirror, which was extremely interactive. Like there's probably nothing like branded mirrors in this format. But overall, every deck's gameplay is kind of trash compared to like, doing a lot of stuff all the time, which is really, really fun.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree. And I think what's really interesting is I had this discussion with one of my mates just yesterday, and I was saying how, right now it feels as though there's so many decks, but I just don't want to play any of them. Like that's why I'm playing Brandon right now. Because there's just nothing else. I will say I'm very excited for the new Rescue Ace support to come out, because when that comes out, that looks like a very fun deck that I'm probably
you've been hyping that for a minute.
I'm excited. Like I don't think it's going to actually be the best deck, but I think it's going to be, again, it's like you were saying, guys, it's going to be a new kind of deck to play. Plays very different to a lot of decks. It's even a different type. Like we don't have that many fire decks just running around like that anymore. So
there was a point you made there, Galzo, that I did want to expand on a little bit. Like you mentioned that you think a lot of deck play styles aren't fun. So to you, I suppose I'll put this question forward to both of you. What actually makes what kind of play style do you guys find the most fun and like I suppose intuitive of your thought process, like the most interactive, if you will?
I think that right now there's a big problem with the game. Up until this format, we got a new ban list. We pretty much, as we're recording this, there's French nationals starting today. We're gonna finally see the new format. Without a lot of toxic cards that were in the previous one. The game plan was like make your opponent not play the game a lot of the times. If you're looking at Kashira, Labyrinth, even Branded, Super Heavy Samurai, like almost every deck, the main goal is like your opponent doesn't play. And when you're talking about like Labyrinth, it's a back row deck. Even with furnitures, it's extremely like annoying, and like you set the silver bullet out of the deck that kills your opponent instantly. Kashira, combining so many mechanics that are toxic, like banishing face down, looking at your extra deck, blocking your zones, like the unholy trinity. It was just horrible deck design. This is like they basically designed the deck around Diablosis, by the way. It was the whole design of the deck was just like get this toxic card to resolve. And you had like Brand Expulsion, you had like Super Heavy Samurai, summoning Spell Counselor. And I think now we're going to see a little bit less of that. What I would want to see is interaction. Even though I'm a very strong believer in Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, and I've got a lot of crap about that. I think like at the end, there's two sides to that, because if you're going to a tournament and your goal is to win, you will play whatever it is you consider okay to win. But overall, like the majority of players, if you look at Mystic Mine format, people didn't want to play Mystic Mine. They wanted to win. At the end of the day, nobody enjoys playing Mystic Mine. So there's winning, and then there's enjoying the game. And when you're talking about enjoying the game, decks like Branded that have infinite amount of interaction with you, like putting Gimmick Puppet aside in that discussion, like the deck on its own has so much just like pure interaction with your opponent. There's nothing preventing them from playing the game. They just have to play through your, insane follow-up and stuff like that. Runic and Sprite do that also, but in a different way, which again, it's kind of hard for me to enjoy. Basically, their entire deck is board breakers that can activate from the hand, and eventually, if they don't manage to break you, they just deck you out. But again, I think Tier Ishizu was such a great format because both players had the same chance of playing the game. Like,
you think genuinely?
If it was the mirror, then yes. I think
if it was the mirror specifically, sure. But the only reason I say is because that's a pretty hot take.
No, I think that it's not super hot because look at the format today and look at, even if you weren't playing Tier Ishizu in Tier Ishizu format, you had the chance to try and play the game, right? You might have had a really crazy board and really crazy like graveyard setup, but you could try and break the board. Today, you either get Eradicator, you get Zone Locked, you get Spell Canceller, you get Gimmick Puppet. You don't even have the chance to try to play. Tier did nothing toxic, if you think about it, compared to today's format.
I get what you mean. And one thing I will say is I do agree with you on people liking interaction, because, like, for example, I really hate Tier Ishizu format, but one thing I noticed is that even though you couldn't play, like, you weren't going to win against Tier, but people still didn't hate playing against it as much. I'll even say I probably didn't hate playing against it as much as Kashtira, just because it's like you said, you got to try. It wasn't going to work, but you got to try. And I think that was the biggest thing. Like, at least the appearance of interactivity is definitely interesting. What I think is funny about that, though, is because you mentioned Runic, but I would hazard a guess that most people really hate Runic, playing against Runic compared to Tier. And I think maybe it's because Runic banishes from your deck too, which just feels a bit frustrating. That might be it. But it's a shame because I feel like the Runic cards, I don't know how they would have solved that problem, because obviously they need some way to win the game since they can't attack you. But I think it's interesting that, you have a deck like Tier, which, I mean, if Tier's power level was lower, I actually think Tier is almost good card design. It was just stupidly powerful for no reason. It was just, like, they need to fix that.
Well, the only thing... No, go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, I think for me, the biggest issue with Tier was Havnis existing. That was just... I think if they hadn't printed Havnis and just had printed like another generic non-quick effect name, I could make an argument for definitely what you're saying there, Fabs. But sorry, Galzo, go on.
I agree, but I also think that like every deck needs a Havnis. I think it was actually good card design, but only Tier had access to it. That was the problem back then. I think that every deck needs a way to play to some degree on their opponent's turn, because that means you play more of that and less hand traps, and it's not just like Ash on your one thing and then you pass. Basically, it's Havnis, and maybe I play a little bit, even though you can set up some nasty boards during your opponent's turn. That might be a little bit contentious. I think that the worst thing about Tier, was shufflers. Those cards should have never been printed. If you look at Tearlaments as a whole, even with Millers, shufflers were like the no. Like, there's no way those cards existed.
Yeah, and I really think, like, if you look at Tia in Darkwing Blast before Ishizu came out, one thing I will say about it is, even though I still think it was actually the best deck then. I think it wasn't as dominant first best deck. But if you look at it before then, one of the things I did like is that the Tier player could whiff sometimes. But the combination of the shufflers and the Gita and Count was just like, oh my gosh, like
the name count was so high, right?
They just had so many targets that they're always gonna hit grave. Like, I remember we played when we went to YCS Leon and we got to play full power tier for like one like proper full power tier with tier cash as well. And it was ridiculous. Like, the way tier would dominate decks, it was actually not even fair. Like, you just couldn't do anything. Like,
it's just 40 cards that each and every one of them has value in the graveyard.
Yeah.
There's no, like, tier at full power never whiffs. There's nothing. There's no such thing because literally every card except Perlerino and Terraforming. So you have 36 cards that do something when they hit the graveyard. It's absurd.
And instant fusion, I guess.
And instant fusion as well. Yeah, but that's another discussion on its own.
Gosh, nightmare.
But yeah, no, I don't want to speak about Tier Ishizu too much because obviously that is a format of the past. So let's move on to not the current format, I suppose the most recent format. So Galzo, you won Israel Nationals. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about how that journey went for you in terms of like your preparation, your tournament. If you feel there's any expectations like on you as being a champion, as a content creator as well as just a player. Like, talk to us a little bit about your mind state throughout that entire time period.
Yeah. Mostly in my friends group, we're a pretty small country and a pretty small community at that. So even our nationals, sometimes in terms of the amount of people who attended, it's like even sometimes a big local in the States. But again, this is this is how it is. Not every country can be like the States, and we do what we can. I think my friends group is extremely competitive. Probably some of the best players in the country are in that group. And shout out to them, of course, for helping me prepare. The weeks leading up to the tournament were kind of stressful, to be honest. I decided that, again, I came into this season starting probably in Photon Hypernova. And we knew we were kind of like in the dark because our nationals was 4 days after Cyberstorm X released. So we weren't really sure planning up to. Oh, you want me to stop or?
No, carry on.
Okay.
Oh. I just had to send my camera for a second. We're still here.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So the weeks leading up to the tournament, we weren't really sure how the format is going to look like. We didn't have any reference because, OCG is OCG, so we kind of had to, play a lot of DB and remote duels with the new decks because Super Heavy Samurai was going to be one of the best decks, and it has never actually existed up until that point. We were gonna play that first time live in the tournament, basically. So for me, it was, again, since Photon Hypernova, my plan was like, I'm gonna play branded until it's unplayable, because it's still getting support. There's no reason for me to drop the deck at this point. And I was like, I'm going all in. This is the deck I love to play. If you do something you love, you'll at least have fun, if not have success with it. So I went all in with branded. Last couple weeks, I was playing like 6 to 8 hours a day on DB, like throughout the whole day. It's obviously not something that's entirely possible for everyone. Sometimes I was doing it like mid-work day, stuff like that. Sometimes during the night. I was just really enjoying the process and labbing. And it's also a double-edged sword because you could lose a lot in testing. You still need to like keep your spirits about you, because I was getting stomped on by Super Heavy Samurai. But it's something I always tell my viewers, like, plan and deck build to your own meta. And I knew that here in our community, I'm not going to see all that much Super Heavy Samurai. So I'm not going to be, tunnel visioned into preparing for that deck. You need to be very aware on what tournament you're going into. Eventually, the finals was against Super Heavy Samurai. But because I played it so much, I knew exactly what the deck did. Even though it was really new at the time, I knew exactly what I was going into. I knew that I did play Drolls in the main. And so it was a lot of testing, a lot of iterating on the builds. I did a video, I think, like a few days after Nationals of like my entire DB, the deck list, the list of deck lists, if you will, of like how my deck went from like version 1 to version 13 that actually won the Nationals. So it was a lot of iterating. I think in the end I was kind of scared of like a lot of rogue matchups. So my deck changed, like last minute really changed a little bit. And yeah, the tournament experience was amazing, but the preparation was like it was really stressful at some point. Thankfully it paid off, but even if it didn't, I think it was really fun, like taking something that seriously. I think it's if you like competition, it's fun.
100%. And I think, speaking to that testing point as well, would you say, because we've had a lot of differing opinions, what value would you place on things like DB? Some people find, for example, DB really valuable. Some people find locals really valuable. What would you say is kind of what you think the best testing is that you can do?
I think testing, the end goal of testing is, there's two goals. One, know your deck better than anybody does. Knowing your deck, especially with things like branded specifically, there's like the pilot is essential to the deck. Some decks kind of more like play themselves. Some decks require, like, there's a base level of branded, then there's like a really intricate level, then there's like knowing all the secondary hidden effects of like every card, because every card has like 3 effects. First thing is play your deck so much, and also get reference from other people as well. Don't just like get tunnel vision on your own gameplay. Play the deck the best, like know your deck in and out, every single interaction in the game. And then the other point of testing is know every other deck really well, like every other deck that is a competitor to your deck. There's no, like, testing is not about winning. Testing is about preparation. When you have, when you play soccer, when you're a soccer player, you work on your conditioning, your agility, your muscle strength, stuff like that. You don't essentially prepare on like scoring a goal. You build yourself up to be the best version of the player you are, and by that you will just win if you're better than everybody else. So I think that the point of testing is knowing your deck extremely well, and then knowing what matchups you're going to play against. Playing a deck blind and, putting interactions in the wrong places, that's what leads to losing. If you know when to stop a deck, you're going to win. So it's up to your personal preference if you think DB serves that purpose the best. I think it's for me, I'm a huge advocate of Dueling Book, specifically because of the fact that, locals is great too. It's pretty much the same, I would say, just like the cadence of which you can do that is a lot lower than DB. DB you can grind. You can't play locals for 8 hours a day, but you can play DB for 8 hours a day. So it's pretty much the same thing. The thing about DB versus automatic simulators that I, like Omega and Edo Pro, that I really advocate for is that it's manual. And when it's manual, you need to be, the computer is not telling you the triggers that you have or the interactions that you have. You have to know those things. And in my opinion, this is exactly how you get better. Like, if my Queritus leaves the field and I have a Luber Engrave, Omega is just going to tell me you want to trigger this and this. But in real life, I'm not going to get those hints when I'm in a tournament. So you need to know those really well. if you know the deck extremely well already, maybe you can go to automatic simulators just for the sake of time. But I'm a real advocate for DB because of that.
I think the one thing that I will say on automatic simulators is I think that they're good for learning a deck from ground zero and just figuring out interactions. But then if you want to get better, like I 100% agree, playing on manual simulators or just in paper is better. But yeah,
for sure.
100%. Yeah, and one of the things that I'll say as well that DB taught me, which I don't know. I feel like we all have had this bad habit, or maybe you didn't. Maybe it's just me. But when you make a mistake, because automatic simulators don't let you make a mistake, it teaches you to be a bit reckless. It's just like, just activate this now, just activate that then, because it's like the screen is flashing and it's saying you can activate this, and so you do it. It's not the same in automatic simulator. You're just going to forget effects sometimes, and you'll get punished for forgetting those effects. And so I think that's a really, really good habit to get out of early. That it's like, I can't just press buttons and hope for the best. Like, no, use your effects and use them when they matter.
Definitely.
I think that's a really good habit.
Things like, I don't know, Bestial Magnum or something.
Exactly.
Like Scarp, whatever.
Yeah, definitely. So, definitely think that's quite important.
Yeah.
But, so moving on. So obviously we have French nationals today, and German.
They're
nationals
also fresh.
They are also fresh.
Fresh, never frozen, isn't it?
But so, guys, what do we think is gonna dominate this nationals coming up? I think it's a really interesting one, to be honest. What do we think, guys?
I'm not sure. Like, at the time of recording, obviously, we don't have the results. When this goes out, there'll probably be the results. I think Vanquish Soul is probably going to see a lot of representation, but I think it'll maybe have like one or two in the top cut. I think Vanquish Souls is a deck that is pilot dependent, respectfully. I do think Branded's going to be a really strong pick. I wouldn't be surprised if Branded wins. Kashtira is still the best deck, I think, and I don't think that's up for debate, really. I probably think it'll be either Branded or Cash that wins it.
Ooh. A spicy one. I'm gonna let Galzo go next before I drop my opinion.
I think this is gonna be a bet, but I think a Runic variant is gonna win the tournament. Okay. I think that Kashtira, there's a lot of really good decks this upcoming format. Labyrinth is untouched and it's extremely strong. Branded is honestly also pretty untouched and very, very strong as well. However, it will always have that weakness of people the deck has been around for so long. Hopefully people like respect. When I was in my nationals, people didn't really know what Quem did, Albion, stuff like that. It was like 4 days after release. Nobody respected those cards. I think now the people are going to be a little bit more ready.
Sure.
Kashtira. I also, when I build my tier list for this format, I was like, yeah, Kashtira is still the best deck. I'm not 100% sure that's correct anymore. Kashtira, when you play against them now, it feels like they've lost a lot of their power. Not because of Diabloses, but because of Arise Heart. If you get rid of that card once, first of all, you don't lose resources out of your deck anymore. So
no, that's very true.
Your key cards remain in the deck. Like if you have outs to it, you can only play one Dragoon, that'll be fine. You get rid of the Arise Heart once, it's really hard for them to get it back, and that is the card that makes the deck. I think that it was a significant hit, even though it didn't seem like. And Runic could be a good competitor. I might just put my money on Runic, just because I don't know. Maybe it's going to come out of left field because we haven't seen that deck in a while.
So here's the thing. I agree with the Runic part. I definitely agree, and I also agree with what you say about Cash. I think one of the things about Cash is that its turn one board is just so. I think it's both the Arise and Diablosis, because its turn one board is just not scary for a lot of decks anymore. I mean, if they do a Rise Heart pot, fundamentally before with Kashtira, it was like, I think the biggest thing is they aren't losing to stuff like Dark Ruler no more before, because of the way the deck played. Whereas now they actually do. Like, no matter what board they make, if their turn one board, they're putting up no negates, so you Dark Ruler them and then you don't care anymore, which I think is really big, and I think that hurts them a lot. I think they're still good. But to be honest, for me personally, yeah, I think Runic, I think a Sprite variant is the best deck right now. I thought that straight away, just because Sprite has always had a good cash matchup anyway, and it just got better. And then Sprite rattles everything else. Like, Oh my days, Nimble Beaver, that's not getting gammered anymore, guys. So when they normal summon Nimble Beaver, you better have an interaction. There's a guy at our locals who he's been normal summoning Beaver and won all 3 locals in a row, last 3 locals, because yeah, you haven't got Gamma or something. Even if you have Imperm or Ash, it doesn't matter. With Sprite, you need to get rid of the body and negate it. I think Sprite is actually positioned to be the best. My expectation is that Vanquish Soul, I don't think we're going to see a lot. It's just the price point. I think most people won't be willing to forks out. Normally, I wouldn't cite Bright as price. I wouldn't cite. I don't know what's happened to my words today.
Wouldn't cite price point as a.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Normally, I'd be like, oh, no, I'm sure people will just force. But I don't think so with Vanquish Soul, just because I don't think it's the best deck. And so that's why I think people wait. It's like, why would I spend that much on that when I could just buy a
Sprite Core
or a Catch Core or whatever?
You're going to see it a lot in Swiss, I think.
Yeah, like
Konami's gonna be like,
yeah,
here you go. Look at this. Look at this deck. It's really cool, right? We're not gonna see it anymore.
Yeah. You can bet your life it'll be on a feature match.
100%.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about Vanquish Soul as well. I think Vanquish Soul, I just don't see it winning. Like it's a really good deck for tournaments though, because it can burn you in time. It has a lot of floating effects and all of these kind of things, and it's quite consistent and can play like tech. So it's I would say that. If you want to top, I actually think it's a good pick, probably. But I don't think it's stronger than the top decks. Like, if Dragon Link starts playing and summoning monsters and doing stuff, your Vanquish Soul deck can't do anything. You ain't got any negates. So...
Yeah, Dragon Link's actually... I think that's probably one of the strongest rogue picks right now. Well, I say rogue, like, tier 1.5.
Yeah, Dragons is always, like, hovering around somewhere.
Yeah. I think there'll be at least one Dragon Link player that will, at the very least, bubble.
Yeah, it always does pretty well. It's an interesting net. But yeah, so Sprite for me is my pick. And Sprite, I think maybe Nimble Sprite, maybe Livetin Runic Sprite, I don't know, but we're going to see some sort of Sprite. And I also think we're going to see loads of people play Sky Striker. I don't know about you guys. This week I've been playing loads of DB as well. And I feel like every game I've played against has been against Sky Striker or some sort of Runic variant with the occasional Vanquish Soul thrown in there. That's what I feel like. It's just so... Everyone is in love with Sky Strikers. It's
such a cool deck. I really love Striker. And we don't have Mystic Mine anymore. It's basically like, if again, this is one of those decks where you actually have to know your stuff a little bit. It's not a deck that plays itself. 100%. So you can do some really, really cool things with Striker. So I'm really excited. Like I got my second engage in my other multi-rolls coming in beginning of next week. Tuesday on locals. It's gonna be the first time I play in paper a deck that is not branded for a long, long time.
Oh my!
And I'm super excited. Just like
fair enough.
Ray, I miss you.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say that about Sky Strikers. Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you were playing at this point, Galzo, but I'm sure Fabs will remember. Like 2018, before Mystic Mine got printed, Striker around that time period was definitely one of the most pilot intuitive decks I think we've ever seen. Like, a bad pilot would definitely be punished and a strong pilot would be 100% rewarded. And I do actually think Striker's probably one of the greatest. Like, I shit on it a lot, but I do actually think it's one of the greatest decks of all time in terms of like card design, other than like maybe Engage. That's a bit much, but I just think it does everything.
Yeah, no, I like that Sky Striker can't kill you in one turn most of them. Now they kind of can with linkage, but I like that Sky Striker doesn't just win in one turn, and so it actually matters how you use your resources.
Yeah.
I always shout out to Josh. He was actually playing Sky Striker yesterday, but he's a guy at our locals who's been playing the deck for... Well, he had been playing the deck for ages.
Since release, right?
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know if you guys remember, but the Endymion versus Striker was supposed to be heavily Endymion favored, because obviously they couldn't target your cards and you had stuff. I don't think I ever took a game off him, because everything he did was so correct. And it's like, it's really, really wonderful when you see a good Sky Striker player play, and like you see them resolve their effects. And even Engage, every deck, look, to be competitive, every deck needs something unfair. Engage is a bit unfair, but you know what? Again, they're not killing you in one turn, so I think I'm okay.
It's true, but do you know what the worst feeling? And I'll never ever forget this happening to me.
Yeah.
Is you have a Striker player, they've got no cards on field, no cards in hand. You're about 100 life points off killing them. You have a full board, you pass, and they top deck Engage and they win. Like,
true.
But that is obviously a bit of an anomaly.
It happens.
But yeah, I'd agree with you there, Fabs. I think everything needs. You need to be a cut above the rest, right?
Yeah, otherwise your deck just gets rattled anyway. So yeah, I'm okay with it. And like we said, I think now as well, even though it's nice that Sky Striker's gotten a lot of this support, I don't think it's gonna be a top tier deck. I think it's good. I think it's one of the best decks with utility cards. Like Thrust is basically a Sky Striker card at this stage.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think it's gonna like dominate or anything. Maybe it'll sneak a win because Tikaboo is a good floodgate. But yeah. Yeah,
I'll enjoy seeing it on feature for sure.
Oh yeah,
I think Konami are gonna push that, and I think it's gonna be really fun to.
They love that deck.
It's like, it's just they love this deck probably as much as they love Branded.
Yeah.
Even more maybe.
Not gonna lie, Konami definitely has some love for Branded because the way we've just been receiving more and more support. At a certain point, I was like, really, we're getting more. Like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna complain, but.
Yeah, they should have just made the Striker comic should have been the Abyss Law comic. It actually should have been, because they're just printing Striker cards that just most of them aren't very good. When we've already got a lot of Branded and Abyss cards, why not just make that a comic instead? That's actually got a story. Oh, I'm going off a tangent.
A lot of the Branded cards are actually not good. I was complaining about Branded cards before, and then one of my friends pointed out to me that we have Branded Fusion. I was like, you know what, we do, so I can't say too much. But Branded has a lot of spell and trap cards, and some of them are really bad. It's like they're just random lore cards and stuff for filler.
But Branded Loss or something like that.
Yeah, and there's like 50 different cards as well that are technically Fallen of Albaz as well, and like we've just got so many cards.
That does lead me into a question I actually had for Galzo. Speaking of all these Branded cards, like I think Galzo, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were one of the first Branded players who really sort of pioneered playing like a lot of utility one-offs. And I remember watching a deck profile of yours, and I think it was like 19 one-offs, and I was like, what is like? It was just, it blew my mind. It was like watching a goat deck profile, but I was like, well, if it works, right? So like, I mean, I don't know if you have ever dealt with like not backlash, I guess, but like people saying like this opinion, like they're differing opinions in your deck building. I know, for example, there was that thing with you and Scarlin, like I understand obviously that was like a little bit more banter focused, but like how do you deal with like people not even criticizing, but just like voicing opinions like on your deck building?
I think Branded is one of those decks. I'm obviously a little bit closer to the community and like Discords and stuff like that focus only on Branded. You have people there who talk about Branded 24/7. It's like, how much can you actually talk about the deck? Is this card good? Well, now it's good. Well, it's not good anymore. I'm gonna take it out of the deck. I'll put this one in. Yeah. This is basically the Branded community at this point, because the deck is so figured out that you just get like people get bored with like the same old thing, so they're trying to like put new things on top of it. I think in terms of the utility that Branded offers, there's a lot of cards that just need to be played as one-offs because they do so much for the deck. So you want to play your one Mercurier. I usually play one Tragedy because we're not in 2021 anymore. The Lubellion and Serenir package of just these two, that was actually pioneered in one of the early, I don't remember which YCS that was. I think it was the first YCS after Foden Hypernova, where people just said, we're just going to play two Bestials. We don't actually need more than that. Mm-hmm. And then you have things like Kit, you have Quem, you have Ad Libitum, you have Branded Lost, you have Branded Red, Retribution. The list goes on and on of cards that you really don't want to not play in your deck, but you definitely don't want to see necessarily a lot of the time. Mm. It's not super horrible if you do see them, but it's just a deck like we talked about before. Konami has released so many Branded cards during these past 2 years that you want a piece. You always want a piece of the pie when it comes to your deck. That's why Branded cannot fit that much non-engine unless you're really ballsy in making like deck building decisions. I've been trying to do that with my deck sometimes, of like I'll strip it down to the bare minimum engine that I need. Mm-hmm. It's still usually 25 at maybe even 30 most of the time. Like extremely essential cards that you cannot take out of your deck. because everything is unlimited right now. You have 3 fusion, 3 opening, 3 deployment, 3 Aluber. You want to max out on everything. And then you have your, like, you know, ad lib for when I'm doing a specific interaction, kit and quem and stuff like that. That's one of the big things about Branded. It has so much to offer that you want to play everything.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And I think as well with Branded, what's nice is that it teaches you a lot about how to deck build as well, because you can build Branded as kind of as that hyper consistent deck and focus on just basically resolve brand fusion. But you can also build it as this open-ended combo deck, and then it also has good synergy with a lot of other fusion archetypes. I don't think we see it enough, but you can mix Branded with obviously like things like Predator Plants. You can mix it with TR. You can mix it with, to be honest, there's probably other things that I can't think of as well. But yeah, so you end up learning a lot because of that way. And I think even if people disagree, for example, with how you build, it's like I don't think I've ever looked at a Branded build. Having said that, I did really like your recent one with Maximus.
Yeah, that was wild. That was wild.
I was like, you're really going in on this one.
That was kind of crazy.
I was getting wacky with it.
Yeah.
This is what Scarlett does to me, you know? She brings out the best of me.
Shout out Scarlett. Definitely want to be having her on pod at some point.
But
for sure.
Yeah, like I think it's really nice that you can do that, and you can, when you get to deck build like that, it just changes the way you look at the game, because then it's like it removes some of those limitations in your head. That's like you don't have to build the deck in that traditional way. And one thing I would say as well, I don't know who it was, someone in the Disciples topped UK Nats with something rubbish. Like, genuinely, it was a crap deck. And it just really taught me that a lot of the times, the deck build doesn't, like, there is a correct deck, don't get me wrong, but for most people, even if your list is slightly suboptimal, if you're playing it well, you probably do well. Like, anyway.
I don't necessarily agree that there's a correct build. Especially not when it comes to Branded, but in other decks as well.
Like, I think the way, when I say there's a correct build, I would say that, yeah, like, usually there's a mathematically correct way. So, an example I'll give is, for example, 3 Branded Fusion, for the most part, is going to be correct for most Branded builds. Do you get it?
True.
So it's like, that's what I mean when I say there's correct. There is a correct, but at the same time, I mean, I think we're kind of agreeing, because I'm also saying, while there is a correct, like, way to play the deck technically, or mathematically most consistent, whatever, it's not going to matter in terms of, for most of us, the thing that is going to determine whether we win or not is going to be how we play, not how we built. And so
I agree.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair analogy. I think Branded's like a deck that is just, again, we've said it a lot, and I guess I'll just say it again. It's just one of the coolest decks. I don't really enjoy playing it personally because it's not my playstyle anymore. But I've definitely had my moments with the deck. Like, I played it pretty consistently until about Power of the Elements format. So it's weird seeing the evolution of it, right? From going like from this deck that you played a Brave Engine and like 15 hand traps to move into like the Edging package, and then you had the really heavy Bestial, and now it's just like this utility. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a deck evolve quite like Branded has.
Yeah, it's gone through a lot of iterations. What the real exciting part to see is what's going to happen after they hit Branded Fusion. How the deck is going to move from there.
What's mad is I think the deck will still be viable.
Definitely, but that's the point. I think when they hit Branded Fusion, it's going to open the deck even up more, because right now you have to play the Branded Fusion is like the best way to play it, because that's the best. Card. But it's like that's going to open up so much after Branded Fusion goes, because then it's like, okay, what can we do without Branded Fusion? Can we start playing links and stuff again, even though other stuff do lock us as well? It's like, is there more archetypes? Is there more cards? Like, I think it'll be really interesting.
More synchro players, like.
Yeah, where the deck goes off, that will be cool.
Yeah, the worst thing that they will do is limit fusion and opening, I would assume. They're not going to ban Branded Fusion.
Yes,
I don't think so.
There's not a no. There's no way. There's no merit to banning it. The deck has never been the best deck since it released.
It's at 1 in the OCG, right? Branded Fusion?
Yes, at 1 in the OCG.
It's at 1, and opening is either 1 or 2. I think it's at 1 as well in the OCG.
True.
There's no Dragoon, stuff like that. I'm really, really, however, like, OCG has to dedicate like 6 slots in their deck for like Maxi and friends. They do have 2 called by, so good for them.
Yeah.
But I'm actually really excited for this to happen. I'm waiting for this to happen because first of all, I need slots in my deck because it's already so packed. And also I'd love the challenge. Like looking at what the OCG does, suddenly you actually play a little bit more Dogmatica cards. Like you play Flora and Ecclesia. Chimera Fusion. I'm really excited for Chimera Fusion because even though it's not going to be like probably like game breaking, it's still like a really cool fusion strategy that you can, play with Branded in. They're not going to kill Branded because there's no reason to kill Branded, but they might hit the consistency. Like if Branded does really well this format, which there is a possibility it does, then yeah, Branded Fusion is probably one of the strongest cards in the game, regardless of what Branded does. So they might hit it, but I'm really excited for the challenge.
Yeah, like the way I see it is, if we're basing it and we're assuming Konami is going to balance the game purely based on balance, then yes, I would agree. But I don't think Konami's only going to ban based on balance. That's why I think there's a chance they might slap us up.
The one thing I think I'll say in terms of ban lists, I think that the format we're in and have been for the last few months has been very similar to like Eternal format, where you've had like decks that have been in rotation for a long time, and I think there's going to be a point where the Konami is going to drop a big ban list and just be like, okay, even the tier 2 decks are getting whacked. Yeah. So
to be fair, the list they just did was kind of like that as well, right?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a small list by any stretch.
But I could see Konami after the Megatins just going, you know what? All your Sprite, even Sword Soul, I could see Sword Soul getting hit.
Yeah.
For example, even though that's not the best deck, I could see that getting hit just because
it's still getting high tournament representation though, right?
Yeah, I think Sword Soul's like I was saying yesterday. Sword Soul and Branded are really unique, or not that unique, but kind of unique in that we're kind of past their format, but they're still just hovering around for some reason. Like they're still playing. Like it's also
because the engine is untouched. Branded. Finally got a first hit on the ban list. The first ever Branded or Despia card on the list was Expulsion. And Sword Soul also never had any card touched except for Protoss and Auroradon, which are, again,
you could argue the Desires hit.
Yeah.
The Desires hit.
Just for like Chen Ying and stuff like that. But like that's more of a generic hit as well, right?
Yeah, other decks could play that too. I think it's a card that is fine into. But overall, basically, if you look at Nationals format last year, those decks are still playable besides Flunderies, basically.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. But maybe that's an interesting take that maybe they do like a board wipe. Definitely in terms of like Kashur and Sprite. But Branded, again, it will be nice for them to keep it on the down low, especially if they're planning on something additional in the future. To just like, limit Branded Fusion, maybe limit opening, and just let the deck live. It doesn't do anything in particular right now even. It's not something that people say, oh, Branded. It's never oh, Branded. Branded just like sneaks a win. But now like Branded is full power. And it's kind of like Eternal format at that point.
Yeah. But yeah, I will definitely say I'm happy with it where it is now. Hopefully I get to keep playing it for a while because I do definitely enjoy playing that deck. And I think I think next format I think this format is going to be a very interesting one moving forward. One of the things that I wanted to actually ask though, and I guess we kind of touched on it a bit when we talked about the Illusionist cards. So do we think there's going to be a new mechanic or a new master, or do we think Konami is kind of happy with the status quo right now and they're going to keep moving forward? What do we think? Because obviously they're releasing a new type, but that's all we've heard so far. And this would be around the time we would expect some sort of news about something game-shaking to enter. So what do you think, guys?
I don't personally think so. I think maybe they'll do a bit of admin in terms of like the general rules, like just sort of cleaning up things like zone placement and like time rules and shit like that. I don't really think so. I think the game is at a point right now where pretty much any sort of strategy in terms of like Link, Xyz, Fusion, whatever, like any sort of strategy on paper is pretty fairly balanced with each other, and I think Konami likes that. I think one thing I'd like to see, but I don't see it happening, is them putting rituals in the extra deck, because I think that would just open up like a lot of different decks, and I think it would be really interesting to see what happens. But I don't think that's ever going to happen, because rituals are just kind of.
I think it'd also break. Yeah. I mean, you'd break half the cards like preparation of rites and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You'll break the incantations as well. So I don't think they'll do that.
Nah, no way. Yeah. Or maybe they'll do it like maybe they could change the way it works, something more akin to pendulums. But I don't think that is going to happen. No, yeah. I don't think they'll be doing anything. Galzo, what about you?
I don't think the game necessarily needs it. The only thing that also I think, sort of like the Illusionist type and the 25th anniversary in general is obviously the prime time to do something like that. But again, like Dan said. The game and the mechanics feel rather balanced at this point, where no specific strategy is like super abusable. Maybe except pendulums still. I think pendulums always seems so weird to me. Like I haven't played when pendulums were like really a thing, but now I got a little bit of a taste for it with Super Heavy Samurais. And the whole idea is bizarre, like face up extra deck stuff. It's just like, maybe do some work there. I think I have a good friend where we always talk about that, and he always says that if there's a master rule revision, he says that the player going second should automatically draw 6 cards and not draw for turn. I think in this format that we just had, that would have been really, really good. Of course, it does change a few little things, but overall, it really, on the other hand, it makes the games quicker, which is not necessarily a good thing, especially in terms of Konami. It's like, I see my 6th card already. When you have full combo, I know that I need to scoop anyway, so we just go into game 2. It does create non-games, but on the other hand, it also helps with going second in general. You have an additional tool, because going second is obviously a disadvantage at this in this format for a lot of time now. So you have another way of maybe fighting the other person building a board. But you also know that you don't need to wait for like 10 minutes when your opponent's comboing to see if you draw the out, because you know you're not going to draw the out, or you already do. So that could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't hate that idea. I'm not sure how it would work, because I do see what you mean in terms of it creating non-games, but I think the potential of going second into a combo deck and not peeling a hand trap for turn, like that sounds very appealing to me.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say as well.
I'd be interested to see that.
The games the games that become non-games were already non-games anyway. For example,
that's true.
Like you were gonna lose anyway if your SIP card was the hand trap, you didn't have the outside. Like I think that would be a really good change for the game. And from playing some other card games, even though there aren't that many with that mechanic, one of the things about Yu-Gi-Oh that's very interesting is like the potential of just losing turn 1 is so high. Like I've been playing One Piece recently and really enjoying it, and it's just different. There's no such thing as I just lost turn 1 because my opponent's already won the game. And so I really think they do need to balance that out. But like I think little quality of life improvements like that would definitely be quite nice.
It might be irreversible at this point. Hopefully it's not. But the philosophy of game design that they've had for probably around 4 to 5 years has just been getting worse and worse. I don't really understand their thought process when they print out, like, Visa's lore is just, what are you thinking? Like, honestly, what are you thinking? It's just incredible, I think, that they've made so many bad design decisions with the game. Because think about when you started feeling that way. Think about when you lost turn 1, when you haven't even played a single card. When have you started feeling that way? It hasn't been that long, to be honest. Like you usually had a chance, but now it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm actually like, I'm terrified of the next Vsauce cards. I'm just like, I don't like, every time I see new Vsauce cards, I'm like, my heart stops for like a second, because it's like tier limits in Kashtira.
Ridiculous.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I'd even say Runic. Like, before Runic came out, I was dreading Runic coming out before I even saw it, because I was like, this just looks not fun to play against. Like, screw the balance in it. It's like, this deck just looks like it's going to keep banishing my deck. I'm not going to get to do anything. They're going to play loads of my turn. They're going to draw my turn, then draw on their turn. Like, yeah, and I don't really understand why. Sometimes I understand the notion of power creep, and like, okay, we want to power creep the game, so the nature of any card game is that cards are going to get stronger. But sometimes it's like, you just have to look at a thing. Like Kashtira, genuinely, I can't think of anyone who looked at Kashtira and thought this would be fun to play or play against. And that's the other problem as well, I'd say, when we talk about game design, where it's like, I would say with Kashtira especially, Kashtira creates this unfun game state for both the player and the person being played against. And most buildable decks do this, where it's like, if I'm playing against you and I'm going second, I don't get to play because you rattle my whole deck and then I've lost already. But then also if I go first and I full combo and then now I have to lose to like Dark Ruler, that's not fun either. When my whole board gets yeeted by one card, like Yukurikara might like, what was his name? Was it Sammy? The guy who won UK YCS with the two.
London, yeah, they had a Kirikara that went fucking hard.
It's like the guy he was playing against played it perfectly. He played really well, but his opponent just had two Kirikara in talents. Board, right? Like he had two Kirikara in talent. Yeah, and it's like that's also not fun. And so it's interesting. I don't know what the goal is here, because normally it's like, okay, you want to keep power creep in the game and stuff like that because you want to get more people to buy product. But genuinely, I actually do think that it's more likely to burn people out and push people out. And I think the thing that, even though Yu-Gi-Oh! Representation is going up, I would say the fact that we're seeing more and more people play older formats and other formats is showing that people are just getting a bit bored and tired of that stuff. Like
people are playing Tier Shizu as a Time Wizard format now. It's not official, but people play that. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I have friends who are picking up full tier limits Ishizu cores to play the mirrors in paper. I think it's also like power creep is one thing, but Konami is really stretching the mechanics of the game little by little. They change the meaning and purpose of every mechanic of like, okay, we have Floowandereeze. You normal summon 6 times a turn. It's not a special summon, but you do normal summon 6 times a turn. You have Runic. There's a field spell that allows you to play cards you're not supposed to play from your hand during your opponent's turn. Yeah. You have Sprite. You can now exceed summon with Lynx who have no level. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just goes on from there. And little by little, they just break the mechanics. And every time they do, it creates that sort of like meta shift of like, how do you even fight against that? Like now you can just normal summon 6 times and I can't stop you from special summoning because it doesn't work against your deck. That's so weird to me that they do stuff like that, because they take the rules that, okay, we all agreed on a set of rules, but then it's like, yeah, you can just normal summon 6 times a turn. Deal with it, players. That's basically what they're doing. And in addition to the power creep of cards, that also creates like a weird state in the game.
Yeah. And I agree that you can see they're doing it with each type, because obviously they did it with Synchros, they've done it with fusions of tiers. I'm still waiting for Konami to do it with rituals. Please break rituals. I'd very much like to play.
Necros has come and gone, Fabs.
Oh gosh, I want a really unfair ritual archetype. Like I just feel like it's our time to shine. But yeah, that.
Oh yeah, but they also made Nouvelle now that can just spam out 5 courses out of the deck with you don't need to ritual summon them.
Do you know the thing about Nouvelle? I would say that Mekanko is the better way of breaking rituals than Nouvelle's, because the problem with Nouvelle's is you need a ritual spell to start. So it's like they end up just being so bad because you just have to play loads of bricks. Whereas Mekanko, I like the fact that Mekanko Ohime, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that she is basically the ritual spell by herself. She's everything. She's the searcher. So now I want to play 3 of my ritual monster, which is nice. So yeah, Konami break rituals. They don't have to be floodgates to break them, but break them.
Well, Drytron exists, right?
Drytron is like fake because it's like no. Do you know what I mean? Like Drytron's
I hear you.
a ritual archetype, but not really.
Yeah.
Do you get it? Like, it's almost, it's more of a Link archetype.
Well,
but just
They definitely are trying though. You can see that like with Meteonis, they started doing like you need to tribute cards with a certain attack and not a certain level. Then you have Mechanico, who's like, okay, the ritual card is actually the ritual spell, which is very cool. Then you have Nouvelle, which is like they all ritual summon each other. They just special summon each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't break them, but that just shows you.
And Megalith as well.
Megalith was really cool. Yeah, I liked how they did it with Megalith. Like, Megalith is awesome.
But now it just shows you like how strong the game is. That like even special summoning 4 ritual monsters out of your deck that wipe your board is just like
it's not good enough.
This even.
Yeah, and it's funny when we, I don't know if you guys watched the Lithium Cross Bandless Cup, but it's funny when you sometimes watch the Cross Bandless Cup, and I feel like whenever an old deck wins, the only time it wins is if it's an FTK or has access to a specific banned utility card. Other than that, I always think like that's even with the brackets as well, because if you look at obviously he does the brackets, so it's like newer decks against newer decks. But whenever a new deck ends up facing up against an old deck, it always just rolls it, because just like the power creep, just especially in the last 2 years. Oh my gosh, the power creep is ridiculous. TR is insane. Kashtira is insane. Fluunderies is insane. Like I think Fluunderies probably rattles most old decks that aren't Towers decks. To be honest, like it's quite nuts. But guys, look, I'm gonna pull into our last topic, and it's gonna be Am I the Arsehole? So, are you familiar with the subreddit Am I the Arsehole, Galzo?
I'm not.
Lovely. So, basically, I read out.
Oh yeah, I am. Okay, go ahead.
So
go ahead.
This one is quite funny. I feel like we were all gonna agree, but I'm gonna read it out anyway because I think it's a good one. And so the title is, "Am I the arsehole for bringing my sister-in-law's wallet to the restaurant when she conveniently always forgets it?" So, let me read it out. My sister-in-law Amy always comes to visit from out of town, and she stays with us and then wants to go to expensive restaurants. She always conveniently forgets her wallet or comes up with some excuse as to why she can't pay her share. She's implied that I make more money than her, and so I should be the one to pay. I make a lot of money, but not so much that I can treat someone every time they come to town. Nevertheless, in the past, I've just paid the bill and asked her to pay me back. She never does. She made a restaurant at an extremely expensive restaurant last night, and before we left, I made it clear that I wouldn't be paying her bill. This is where I might be the arsehole. As we were leaving, her and my husband went to the car. I pretended I forgot something and went back inside. I found her wallet sitting right on top of her suitcase. I put it in my purse and we went to the restaurant. When we were done eating, I asked for separate bills. She said, no, we need one bill because she forgot her wallet again. I reached in my purse and said, this wallet. She was extremely furious. She said I shouldn't have touched or grabbed her wallet. Am I the arsehole for taking her wallet and bringing it to the restaurant? What do you think, guys?
So it's non-Yu-Gi-Oh related. Just doing
this one's not Yu-Gi-Oh. That's what I was like. I just found this so hilarious, and I wanted to bring it up.
Fabs, we never start with your opinion. So what are you saying?
I think she is a little bit the arsehole, but I would say not in. Okay, her sister's definitely an arsehole. I think, but she should have handled it differently. I think that it's not hard to just be like, I'm not going to pay for you, and then say, please bring your wallet. If you don't bring your wallet, I'm going to pay for myself and leave. Like, it's not hard to do that. I agree that you shouldn't be taking someone's wallet. But also, her sister-in-law's very cheeky. That's very cheeky to just forget your wallet like that. Like, okay, sure. Well, yeah, what do you guys think?
Galzo, tee this off.
I kind of agree. I agree 100% with what you said, Fabs. She is more of an asshole than her sister-in-law or whoever it is. I mean, taking the wallet, that's a bit like it's a confrontational way of going about it. Like, it's fine if you've been suffering from it for a while. I'm just trying to justify it in my head as if I'm like defending an argument. I think obviously they're both assholes, but I think she's a little bit. There are probably better ways of dealing with the situation than putting her on the spot like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's kind of an asshole.
Yeah. What do you think then?
It's difficult, right? Because I feel like if I was in this situation, I'd be like mega peeved. But also, I feel like I'd be like, no, we're not going to this. We're not going to this restaurant.
Exactly. You can also just say no if she knows you get it. That's why it's like.
I feel like interfering with someone else's personal property, even if they are taking advantage of you, is a little bit. I don't know. It's a certain thing that I don't particularly like it when people do. Like, I feel like if I was the sister in this scenario, I would be frustrated. But then I'd also think, well, fair enough. Yeah, like I have been a bit of a dickhead. I don't think she's an asshole, but I do think she could have handled it differently. I think the sisters are fucking. She's a piece of work, man.
Yeah.
Like, how are you gonna look a gift horse in the mouth like that, man? You staying over the house, like you're making them go to restaurants they don't want to go to, and you're making them pay the bill. You're disrespectful, man.
Yeah.
Disrespectful.
Yeah, okay, I'll agree. Like, yeah, she's not maybe not on ours, but like, yeah, she's like it should have been handled better. Like, and again, just say no. Like, I don't know about you guys. Me personally, I'm not a fan of restaurants. I like cheap. I like my food cheap, and I like it greasy. That's my A1 combination of food right there. I don't do restaurants expensive, all of that. I just say no a lot of the time. My friends are like, oh, do you want to go? No, I don't. I'd rather just order food at home. Like, you can say no. You don't have to go to every expensive restaurant that someone invites you to, especially if you know they're not going to pay. So
that's
just
the thing.
Say no.
Yeah.
I feel like if it was a case where the sister had been like, oh, you've let me stay, let me take you out to dinner as thank you, and then she'd been like, oh no, I forgot my wallet, that would be very devious.
That would be mad. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be insane.
Yeah.
I'd be like, nah, fuck you, innit? You'll never stand at my gaff again.
Yeah, so it's like, how many times can you let someone take advantage of you? I mean, yeah, it's your sister, but still, I don't know. Well, it's her sister-in-law as well. So the other thing as well is, I would say her husband, this is something that I genuinely say in relationships, it's like, I don't genuinely say, I was given this advice and I agree with it, which is that you should be your spouse's shield from your family. So I would expect, for example, the husband should be correcting this and talking to his sister, because if my sister was doing that, I wouldn't expect my wife to deal with it. I'd be like, stop it. What's going on?
I agree.
Yes, I think that as well. It's more the husband's job to deal with it than her job to deal with it, because he knows his family. But yeah. With that, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show. Thank you all for watching. This has been a very, very fun episode. Guys, have you got any shout-outs, anything you want to drop before we round this up?
Just my team, and also you guys for having me. Big shout out to you guys. Hope you do well with the rest of the show, but overall it's been really fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, bro. And yeah, so I guess we'll talk to you guys all soon. Peace.